Hi there, Elevated Planet community. This is John Drew here from Elevated Planet, and today I'm here with my good friend Susan Grau. Hi, Susan. How are you doing?
I'm doing great. How are you?
Fantastic, thank you.
Good.
I'm excited to be talking to you today, as I have explained to the Elevated Planet community on many an occasion over the last year and a half. I've been putting these things together. You were effectively the foundation that began my interest in exploring consciousness and higher consciousness and the reason why we're here and all that kind of thing. And the reason that happened is that back in May 2018, I had my first ever mediumistic reading with Susan. And it was the hour that changed my life. I would never have gone to that kind of thing. My daughter had a reading herself, and she'd suggested Susan, because I realized I needed to go as well, because her reading included messages for me. So I thought, well, that's weird. This must be real. There's got to be something in it. So I thought I'd better explore this for myself. And the hour that I had in your office, Susan, was the most incredible hour. And I remember when I left your office, and I was just like, it felt weird. It was like floating on a bit of a cloud. I thought, well, life is never going to be the same again now, is it? Thank you for beginning my journey.
Well, I'm honored that you say that. That's wonderful. I'm so happy because your journey has turned out to be just so in sync with the spiritual sector and the spiritual world. So I think that's wonderful. I'm grateful that you went that direction.
Yeah, well, I mean, it's a complete sea change from the world of corporate finance kind of thing. But, you know, I'm so glad I've made this journey, because it's kind of taken me to a really good place in life. You know? And that's what it's done for me, is just kind of helped me to realize why we're here and what this is all about. But Susan, can I just ask you, I'm going to take this back to really, your gift is an amazing gift, right? And that, I know, I have zero doubt you're an incredible person. You're here for a real reason. How did it all begin for you? Would you like to just give us a bit of that background?
Well, I think I always had something. I just didn't understand what that was. I was very tiny. I remember we had some animals on our land, and that a couple of them passed away, and I saw them floating, and I didn't think anything. I didn't even think, is this normal? I thought nothing, because it'd be the same feeling of if you looked at your hand. Everybody has it, right? I never stepped outside. It just was. At 4.5 years old, tipping on 5, I got locked in an unplugged freezer in a garage. I was separated from our house. Some boys told me to climb up in there and get popsicles. Well, obviously it was unplugged, so there weren't any. And then they closed the freezer door, they closed the garage door, and they ran home. And with that separation, we had, I mean, there was a yard and a fence and a tool area. It was just so far. And then the laundry room, and then the kitchen, and then the living room where somebody might sit and watch TV or whatever. My mom was in the very back of the house. She said she heard some screaming, high pitched. It sounded like kittens or cats, not kittens, cats, mating. And she said it's that high pitched of a sound. And that's all she could compare it to. And she ignored it. And so I was in this freezer. I remember screaming, terrified. You know, until I started writing again, I didn't recognize how frightened I actually was. And I was really scared. And I remember knowing that at 4.5, I was almost 5, but so let's, you know, but I didn't think that you could conceptualize death. And that is true. You don't conceptualize the actual journey of death, but survival mode is still in us from the moment we're born. From the moment you are a baby, you're in survival. That's why you're screaming for your bottle, because you know you have to eat. That's why, you know, all those things, the survival mode is already in us. And I didn't know that when I was little, but I know that now. And that's what happened to me, is survival mode stepped in. And so I kept screaming and screaming, and I could tell I was getting tired. And everything was dark, and then it wasn't. And I remember seeing 3 beautiful lights, and I knew one of them was extremely powerful. And they said, stop screaming. And we're going to get your mommy. And basically, but first, you know, but they didn't say those words. We're going to do this.
Yeah.
I don't remember being like yanked out of my body. I don't remember looking back at my body. I don't remember that. And a lot of people say that they, you know, they could see their body down below them and they weren't connected to it. I don't remember that. I remember almost like a little pop. That's what it felt like a pop gun, you know, that sound. And I remember just being at the bottom of the stairs. And I knew that there was something at the top of those stairs, and I could see the three white lights at the top. And I remember thinking, how am I going to get up there? Like I'm little. I remember being little. I wasn't just a spirit. I was little. And I remember that. So I think I wasn't completely gone, obviously, or I mean, I don't know. I can't even tell you. So I looked up and I thought, how am I going to get up? And boom, I like another little pop. And I was at the top. And I was on the edge of this, what I call the well. And I could see movement in this well. And they were to the left of me. And I was looking at this well and I wasn't afraid. And I was on the ledge. And it was dark, but there were words moving in this well. And there were tons of them. And I look back now and I look at it like DNA doing this. But at the time, I just saw it as words. And I said, where am I? And they said, you're in the room of heart's desires. And I knew those are people's desires. Like, and I didn't even really know what desires meant, but I knew what that was. I knew those were people's thoughts of what they wanted. And from there, it just went to, do you answer all those? You know, and I looked up and I saw crystals and I saw, it was just this beautiful Greco-Roman room. I know that sounds a little off, but it was open at the ceiling, the same size that it was open in this floor. And it was almost as if it was coming from the top, but I was seeing it coming from the bottom. And I know that doesn't make any sense, but that's how it felt to me. Like almost like they were putting it there, kind of like we have a crown chakra. They were dropping into it, but yet it was coming from the bottom and it was intermingling. And I realized that all of our words and our desires and our love and our needs are intermingling for them. And I said, do you answer all these? And they said, no, Cece, sometimes what people want the most isn't good for them.
Yes.
And from there came the yellow brick road, which is another part of that experience, which was phenomenal. I called it the yellow brick road because I'd seen the Wizard of Oz and it made sense to me. And I could see pavers in a pyramid shape on the left side of this road. And I was watching humans. It was a golden road, and I was watching humans pull from the bottom of this pavers of this pyramid, and they were trying to pave their path, and it was bumpy and crooked and crazy, and it didn't pave easily. And I recognized that they were unbalancing the pyramid, and I recognized that it was their life journey. Don't know how I knew it, but I knew it. This was their life journey. Like this is life over here. And they're pulling from the bottom and they're making it all unbalanced.
Wow.
And I watched people drop to their knees and say, please, for the love of God, help me, help me, help me. And I watched what I consider to be angelic presence because they come as we understand them. And I understood that. Come in and start picking up the pavers on the road and putting them back to balance the life journey and going to the top of the pavers, which by the way, kept recreating themselves. And it like our journey recreates itself as we do it and pulling those pavers and starting to pave that road. And I said, what are you doing? And they said, we are the pavers. You are not. All you have to do is walk it. We know what's best for you. You think you know what's best for you. Didn't understand anything they meant. I didn't understand it, but I remembered it.
Yeah.
And they said, when you see a wall on your journey, as your pavers, you will not see one. You'll see obstacles to learn. When you are paving your path, you'll see walls, and it will be bumpy and crooked in a way that it doesn't need to be. And when that happens, you just shift. You don't run. What you run from chases you. What you try to control controls you. You shift. And as you shift, you'll see something else. And if you don't, you still see that wall, you shift again. And you continue to shift until what you're seeing in front of you is us paving your path. And those obstacles won't feel like a wall, because a wall you can get through battered and bruised at best.
Mm.
But obstacles you're walking through, you're not banging your head against them.
Mm.
So I didn't understand anything they were telling me, to be honest with you. I just kind of heard it and I went, okay. Maybe a little bit I understood what they were saying, but not really. I didn't really even know what was happening,
Right.
like where I actually was. I didn't even have that understanding, where most people say they understand. Most children, I work with children that have near-death experiences, and most of them say, like I say, I didn't really understand what they were saying, but I knew I would someday.
Yes.
And I didn't put the pieces together, but I knew it would come. And then it went from there to different rooms and different experiences. And I call them rooms because I was a child and that's how I saw them. But in totality, they were one.
Mm.
But I saw them almost synchronized so that I could ingest it.
Mm.
So do I think that there's all these different rooms? Not necessarily. It could all be one space. But what I do know is that that's the way they're going to show it to a child, because that's the way they show it to me.
Right.
So that I could separate what they were trying to say, kind of in an understanding way, kind of like you read a chapter of a book and then you close that one chapter and you're reading the next chapter. It doesn't all run together.
Yes.
So, so that you can actually conceptualize the chapter.
Yeah.
And then I ended up in the room of knowledge, which was, I used to tell people it was books with no books. They call that virtual now. But when I was young, I'm, in the 60s, I didn't know what that was. And so there were books, but they weren't there. And they couldn't, and I kept saying, but they were books and they weren't there. And ultimately, I got to see our journey and learn to understand. So we do choose our journey, but not everything is controlled. So, for instance, maybe my soul wanted to resonate the understanding and knowledge and feel what marriage felt like.
Mm.
So I'll be married. I might be 95, but I'll be married.
Mm.
If that's what I chose on my journey, who I marry, how long I married, the kind of marriage I have, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera, is my free will, so that my soul can expand and grow. So if I don't understand that, I'm thinking they plan it all. I don't need to be here.
Mm.
There's no reason to be here if free will isn't free will, right? Because if it's a planned event, they know about it. I know about it. Everyone else knows about it. Every psychic knows about it. So it's really already done.
Yes.
So there's nothing to learn.
Yes.
So, but you will be married.
Right.
And then, and maybe more than once. And the same with everything we choose. So free will is very involved, and that's what they showed me. And I didn't know what that was either. I didn't understand, but because I wanted to understand, I got some knowledge of that. So that later on, when they downloaded more into me, I went, oh, that's what that meant. I went through an experience. And I go, oh, I remember this. That's what that meant. That's kind of what happened to me throughout my journey. But for the sake of keeping it short and small, short as I can, that's what they were trying to say to me.
Wow.
And I saw a room, a virtual room, I guess, of companions. And those were our loved animals and beloved creatures. And they were happy and healthy and romping and playing and in the fields. So I could see daisies. I actually sat in that field. I went to lives between lives, which is hard to explain, but I was just a child and they were telling me it's time to go, and they were putting me in the water. And I was walking on a river's edge with a beautiful angelic presence. So it was just surreal. My mother said she heard your babies in the freezer. She ignored it. She didn't know what she was hearing.
Yeah.
And I remember almost saying it to her. So I remember seeing her. That's how I think I learned mediumship. I remember seeing her, and I remember being able to break that veil enough for her to hear my voice. And she said she heard it again, but it sounded more like me, like I'm in the freezer, mommy kind of feeling.
Yeah. Yeah.
She couldn't identify it, but yet she did in her soul. And that's when she came. And it goes from there.
Wow. Wow. So it's amazing, isn't it, to say that you were that young. You didn't necessarily understand everything that was being shown to you at that particular point in time. And yet your on your ability to recount it, you know, because when you
Well,
don't remember stuff with that degree of vivid ability to recall, but that, you know, that is, I mean, and that's a beautiful story.
oh, it goes on and on and on. But my recall, in all honesty, so I've seen this again 2 other times.
Mm.
And I had a brain tumor, and I had an experience when I had my surgery. And also when my brother passed and when my father passed, so 3 other times actually. But vividly saw it 2 other times.
Mm.
And I saw the same thing, and I understood it that time.
Mm. Yeah.
So I don't necessarily share that in my book simply for the sake of I could be writing forever and people would start to doubt what I'm writing, because that's the way people work, right? You go, well, how is that possible?
Yeah.
But I recall my brother pulling me back to the golden brick, you know, the yellow brick road.
Yeah.
And what happened on that journey for him. He tried for 3 nights. I didn't know he died. He committed suicide, and they didn't find him for 3 days.
Mm.
And he did it on my birthday. And I thought that was atrocious. And he said to me later on, it was because I wanted you to remember me and know that how much I loved you, that I was thinking of you.
Mm.
Not, you know, not sad. I was thinking of you in a good way.
Yeah.
And so that made sense to me, you know. So things as we go tend to make more sense as we review them again and again. And that's what happened to me, is when I needed to know what that meant, I would have this experience. And then there I was knowing what that meant. And understanding that, oh, that was real. Because when that happens to you, as much as you know, right? But as a child, is that real? Kind of like if you have a visitation as a child, you know they were there, but then you go, was that real? You're a child in a child's mind. So
yes, yeah,
I didn't get pulled out of my body with all this spiritual knowledge and understanding, and I think there's a reason for that. But I didn't get pulled out remembering everything from my past life or any of that. I was still that child, and I think it was because I was meant to come back. I was meant to learn as I go, and I was meant to grow. I'm having a human experience like everyone else, so I have to grow. And so that would be taken from me if I had all the knowledge in the world about what I was experiencing.
Right. Yeah. And you know, this is the thing that, again, I come back to the session that I had with you, that first 1 hour session. One of the things I realized that really drove me on to do the Elevated Planet thing with Jolie and building everything that we're building was because that was such a healing 1 hour. The reason I felt like I did when I left was because I felt healed, and I didn't even know I needed healing, but it just triggered something, and it just made me think, you know, something that's relatively hidden in the shadows, you might say, that like mediumship and things like that, which is not regarded as mainstream kind of things that, I mean, plenty of people who do believe in it, plenty of people do it, but it's still in the shadows a little. And I thought, well, anything this healing should not be in the shadows. We've got to do something to kind of elevate this to a point where it becomes normal, right? To be able to communicate. I mean, to me, I just love the fact that, you know, my mom, who died back in, I think, 1981, for that first time, I was connected with her again after all those years, 37 years or something like that. And it was remarkable because she was recounting things that happened like when I was 6. And she was with my Uncle Richard, who was also on the other side, but they were effectively pulling my leg about some incident that had happened with a car that I remembered and they both knew about. But it was like, it was all these things. And when my talking about so many things that just added up, but also explaining to me why certain things happened the way they had. And I thought, wow, this is just like this enormous, you know, here we are, we're having a human experience, as you say. Just because you kind of like tap into the fact that we do start to understand what this is all about, it doesn't necessarily mean that you don't get the roadblocks. It doesn't mean you don't get the life challenges, right? You'll continue to get them. But at the same time, at least you can approach them with a different kind of mindset. But that's the thing I got from it. I mean, you know, like you coming back because my experience was I don't know how many thousands of people that you actually affected in that positive way over the last decades. But if you can imagine how many people's lives you've touched and elevated because you did come back.
Thank you. That's so kind. Those are such kind words. I know that I'm the conduit, you know, and I'm so grateful for that. But I also know that I have to be willing to be that. And I have to utilize my journey for that. And so I take that as an honor to be able to do that. So although I don't claim it all, I do know that I have a part in it. And that is like anything we do, right? We have a part, you know, if you go to a job, anything you do. Yeah. For me, it's a very stressful work. A lot of mediums I don't hear say that, and a lot I do. You know, it just depends upon who you're talking to. But it is very stressful work because we are trying to show someone who is, you know, shut off, doubtful, you know, crossing their arms, that there is a world beyond them and there is a journey beyond them and their loved ones are there. And if we fail at that, we feel that internally. I wish we did, but we did. Even though we know it's their decision to make when they're ready to hear it, we still feel like if we did more, if we said more, so it's a very stressful job. And I don't think people recognize that with mediums. Well, we're healers, and it's like going into heart surgery every day, you know, and knowing that you could take a life if you're not on it. Yeah. You know, if you've had a bad day and not a good sleep, not, you know, haven't eaten right, whatever, and you're walking or haven't eaten at all, and you walk in and you open someone's heart, you're taking a risk with their life in a way that, and you're already doing that anyway. So it's not something that, you know, I just smile about all the time. Sometimes I'll go to work and I'll say, oh, what if I'm fooling people? What if this is all, you know, I'll tell my people that work for me, what if I'm making all this up? And what if it's not real? And and I do this often. And they'll say to me, come talk to me after you're done doing all your readings, and then tell me you feel that way. And then I'll come out and go, it's impossible. I couldn't have known that, you know? So it's like, I still have that too. And when people are saying to me, I can't believe you know that, or they'll go, oh, like in shock, and all inside I'm going, oh, how did I know that? I'm doing the same thing they're doing. I'm in my human experience, but I can't show it because I'm the, you know, I'm the reader. I'm not supposed to show that. But a lot of times I'll tell them, I feel how you feel right now. I'm blown away. Yeah. I'm blown away at how powerful it really is. And so that honesty, that realism takes you off of that notched level that you tend to see with people who do spiritual work. At times you'll see them up like they're higher than and I just can't go there because I know I'm just as much awe and shock, and I've been doing this a long time and I still feel that way. I still am like, oh my God, how did I know that? So, you know, and when you say it changed you, or it set you on a different path, or it made you realize they were there, it was so profound. I'm in awe of that too. You're talking, I'm thinking, wow, really? For sure. And I hear it, and I've heard it a lot, but I still go there. And it's not just because I'm so humble I can't stand it, because, you know, nobody is in the human condition. We are a little humble, hopefully, but we all have ego. That's how we, you know, don't sting me, the bee, and don't run me over, car. And, you know, we have ego. It's necessary on this planet to survival. But I still, till this day, I'm sitting there looking at you as you're saying it, and I'm going, wow, what I said had that impact. Yeah. It's mind-blowing to me.
Do you know, one of the other things that I recall from that first reading that I had was that my father-in-law, who'd come through quite powerfully, and he was even able to move the gong that you had on the cabinet behind you. And he said, he's doing that. He said, that's unusual to see somebody who's passed over to be able to do that. And you could see it just moving. It was, you know, it was not this, but it was definitely moving. There was no draft in the room. There was no fan. There was no nothing. And yet and then he said afterwards, you asked him the question, would you allow us to see your orb after the reading? I thought, okay, well, what does that look like then? So anyway, after the reading, we then went through into your first room, if you like, where you walk into, and you had a camera set up there that shows specific energy. You know, you can see energy that you can't see with the naked eye, if you like.
Security camera.
Is it what?
It's just a security camera from ADT.
Okay, security camera. And again, and I think this is the thing, because I do know that cameras can pick up on things that are beyond our normal optical kind of vision.
Yes.
And we went in there and we waited, and I was watching this screen, and then after a few seconds, you said something like, "Oh, they don't know that we're here yet." And then you see one of these things come through, these little beams of light, and then there were about another 8 or 9 with it as well immediately after, and they're all starting to whiz around the room. And what you'd said to my father-in-law, to prove that which one is you, to travel through my body, basically. And we did. One of them split up, and it came through me. It was like, I mean, honestly, it was just so incredible to see that. But it was like so many lessons about this stuff. For somebody who was a very left brain finance numbers person who deals in facts, to be confronted with an hour's worth of stuff that kind of burst my reality bubble completely. But I loved it. It was so uplifting. But
I remember your face like, are you kidding me right now? You know, because I know that dust can be on cameras. I'm
right.
very familiar with that, and I know that little flies and things like that can get on camera. The little bugs we can't see. So I'm always asking them, do something that this dust isn't able to do, and do it now.
Yeah.
If it's really an orb, if it's really spirit, and I always know they're there because I feel them, but I want the client to see the difference.
Yeah.
I'll ask them to go in me and out of me, and they'll come up through my feet and go to my chest, and then they'll go back out all the way down my body, out my feet. Or there was this one experience, John, it's mind blowing. I actually have it on posted somewhere. I think it's on YouTube. I was dealing with a lot of loss of children that week. And I was really struggling internally. I mean, I didn't know if I could keep doing the work. I probably saw 10 people who lost their child in some horrible way.
Wow.
And one of the ways was a woman who lost 3 of her children in an accident. She couldn't get them out of the car. And it's a long story. I don't even want to go into it. It's so horrific to me. Not for the children, but for her. The children were fine. They were safe and secure. Yeah. And I'm sitting on my couch in the front room, and I'm looking at the screen, and I just said, I can't. I love you all. I thank you for this beautiful gift, but I can't. I have to stop. I can't do this. My heart is broken. And I was crying, and it was showering like dust, showering orbs. Wow. And I thought, well, that's strange. And then I said, my heart is broken. And it stopped showering 100%. You'll see this on camera. It stopped completely. And all of a sudden, this beautiful orb shaped like a heart flies in front of me on camera, sits there for a minute and starts moving, like dropping out of nowhere, and then goes, and then it starts showering again. It was completely clear. And then all of a sudden it just went crazy, almost as if all the little orbs that followed this, whatever this beautiful, powerful orb was, they honored it, stopped, and I said, okay, I can do this. It filled my heart, and I don't know how to explain it, but it was like a complete shift. And I knew the message is we carry your heart. And we love you, and you are not alone. And I was blown away. And I actually ended up putting it up, and everyone who sees it says, well, it could have been, it looked like a feather heart. It's so hard to describe. You have to see it. And when I put on YouTube, people go, well, that's just does that. And then they write me later and go, I've been watching this over and over, and I noticed that the dust stopped. the dust stopped, and then this thing came up. And did you throw it up in the air? And I'm like, okay, this is a see-through orb. I can't throw that up in the air and make it look like something. And it dropped very slowly. Mind-blowing.
Wow.
And that's when I knew. That's when I really, really knew. This was years ago, but it's still up on YouTube. I knew beyond a shadow of a doubt that they were there at that moment. But then, you go back to work and you go, are you really here? So, but that was the most healing experience.
And that reminds me, actually, and that during that reading, two of the entities that came forward were my grandparents, who used to live in Germany, so Oma and Opa as I knew them. And when they came through, the message they gave you was that they were just as close in the afterlife as they were in this life. They were still together, and there was still love, and there was still, which I thought was a beautiful message. And I remembered that. And it was interesting because my partner and I, she always has this thing about orbs, seeing orbs and things. And I started to do the same thing. And occasionally I would start to scan the room at night with my camera, with a little light on it, and then just spot the activity. And it was quite interesting. I remember once I asked my grandparents if they would be prepared to show themselves to me. And it was like, what happened is that the wall, like I was in bed, the wall's over there, and then these two orbs came out from the wall. They came towards the camera. As they came, they sort of dropped down a bit and then came back into view, but they joined together to form a heart shape in front, and then went disappearing back off through the wall again. And
I like mind-blowing. And I like that you say through the wall, because people don't understand. Yes, there's dust on walls. And I say this because clearly, if you throw dust in a room, you're going to see little orbs flying everywhere. They're going to be like, so it's so important that they understand the difference. So they're not coming off the wall. They're coming through the wall as they're pulsating.
Yeah.
My camera is black and white. It's just a security camera. And I see color on camera of bright blues and greens and reds occasionally, not always. It's a black and white camera. And I go, how is that possible? Like, how did that just happen? There's nothing going on in here. It's pitch black and blinds are down. There's nothing to create that. And so, and they're orbs. And I love the way they pulsate, when they're coming. When I lost my dog, I was, two things happened, but one, I had an orb come to me, and I blew up the orb. Like, I took a picture of it, and then I kept stretching it. And it was my dog's face. Exactly. My dog's exactly. You can't deny a Shih Tzu's, face with the nose and everything. And that was mind blowing to me. And then I have one where there's a perfect little orbs through the big orb across. So it looks exactly, and I have it online. It looks, and you can see it lit up inside, a perfect cross. But they're little circles being carried by this big orb. Just things like that just blow your mind, that you go, okay, this can't be, but it is.
And that's, and again, to that exact same point, because my partner and I had an interest in this, and we used to kind of like flash the camera around at night just to sort of like pick up whatever was there. And then if there was anything very, that comes at the camera, and you can pick it up and it's translucent, and you can actually zoom in, like, as you say, you can like just
stretch it
out. And we've seen faces. We've definitely seen faces. Sometimes we've seen animals, and sometimes we've seen human faces. But you do see it. It's just like remarkable. I mean, honestly, I would say to anybody that listens to this, if you want to give it a go, I don't guarantee you it's going to work, but it's just an interesting thing. We would always do this when it's dark, but the flashlight comes onto the camera, and that's what kind of picks it up. Now, I think you can differentiate dust activity from orb activity, because the pattern and the movement is very different. It's very directed. And you see it turning corners and going, but try it, see if you get any joy from it. If you do, let us know on ElevatedPlanet.Life. Come on through and tell us. And even if you don't, anyway, because
And they can be giant.
Yeah.
That, you know, I mean, I'm talking like a huge beach ball.
Wow.
They can come through like that. They do in my office. The one that went up inside my waist and came back out, it was like a beach ball.
Wow.
And it was pulsing into me, and I could feel it. It was just like, oh my God, I feel this going towards my heart. It was beautiful.
Yeah.
And so, you know, orbs are a beautiful subject. There's something that, the same way that spirituality gets debunked, the same way that mediumship gets debunked, and all these other things, you can be sure that people are going to debunk it. But it doesn't matter. It's what you understand and know and believe and trust that matters. And you know, there are people that try to fool mediums. It happens all the time. I'm going to prove them to be, you know, well, and then they'll say, you know, they'll yes, I lost my son. Yes, 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 yes. And you're saying, well, these are the messages I'm getting from a gentleman in this room. I'm very cautious not to say this is absolutely your child, because there always are spirits in the room. And then, you know, this hasn't happened to me yet. I'm sure it will. But what ultimately they might say to a medium, well, I didn't lose my child. I lied. And then they call you a liar. Now listen to that. I didn't lose my child. I lied to test you. I lied is what they're saying. And then they call you a liar. So spirit will show up no matter what.
Yeah.
If you couldn't talk and you weren't able to communicate with anyone, and you were sitting in a room as an orb or a spirit next to me, and you said, I love that woman's dress over there. And I said, oh, in my mind, I love it too. And then you said, in those green shoes, man, those are knockouts. And I said, I love those green shoes too. I'd like to have them. In my mind, you'd go, she can hear me. I'm not going to leave her alone. I'm going to talk and talk and talk. I'm going to show up at every chance I get to be able to speak. This woman can hear me, or this man can hear me. And you would share and share and share as though these people are yours. Right? So I don't know your story. If you claim them, they will come. Right? They may not be yours because you're not claiming them fairly and honestly, and you're lying about it, but they will come because they can. And they will talk and talk and talk, and they'll say whatever they can say to get your attention, as long as it's not dishonest. So if you say your son died of suicide, I don't know your story. If someone comes through that died of suicide, that was your son's age, because they want to talk, and you keep claiming it, I'm oblivious to that, your story. But people don't understand that. So they go, see, they're liars, and so it's very stressful, because I tell them, if you claim them, I'm going to believe you, because they're going to keep talking. So I want you to know that you need to be absolute that it's them. That's why I do evidential mediumship. I want evidence, so that you, not me, you can say, yes, that's my family. I was taught through James von Prague, and he was one of my teachers, and he said to me, this happened to him in a big group setting, and it was a newspaper guy, and there were a lot of people there that didn't get the reading that loved one wanted to give them. They kept giving more and more evidence and more evidence, and he was nodding his head, yes, yes, yes. And then at the end, he stood up and said, I didn't, all it's a lie. That wasn't anybody I knew. But there were people in that audience that this person on the other side, this spirit on the other side, the soul, wanted to get the message across. So they kept going. And, you know, James said, I don't do this game, but I know inside of him, it was written up, you know, that he, you know, made it all up. But afterwards, a person came to him and said, I know that was my son or my loved one, whatever it was. I don't remember those details, but let's just say son for the sake of easy. And everything you said, and I kept raising my hand, but this other person claimed it. Well, their son kept talking because they knew that they'd be recognized at some point.
Yes. Yeah.
So, you know, this is the scary part about what we do. It's the sad part about what we do. And it's this deceit. And so in the beginning of my readings, I always tell people now, you know, I don't know your story. So if you claim it, I'm going to believe you. I'm going to believe that you're not lying to me. So I've learned to have the strength in my understanding of my mediumship work and the power of mediumship to be able to say, I'm not here to prove anything. I will believe you if you say yes. And that's on your shoulders. My job is to give you the evidence I can give you. And if
Yes.
it belongs to you, wonderful.
Yeah.
I didn't always feel that way. I remember I'd go to work and I'd have a pit in my stomach. And I would be so frightened to get it wrong or that somebody wouldn't be sincere. So I always tell people, if it doesn't make sense, say so. I want it to make sense. I don't want to make it fit. I want it to be right.
Yes. Yes.
You know, because I want to know I'm in that connection with you. Their loved one may be in the background going, are you going to give me the opportunity to speak here? Because you're claiming somebody it doesn't even belong to. Why are you doing that? I'm here, I'm here, I'm here. And they're missing that. They're missing out on that.
Mm.
So, and I usually can hear it. You know, I'm here, I'm here, I'm here. And I'll go, well, this isn't feeling right. This isn't quite right. And I'll know that and I'll pause. And I'll say, I have someone else in the room for you. You know, so that's kind of how I handle it. But it's been years of trauma for me or experience, you know, to learn that it's really important when you go to a medium that you not say yes if it doesn't make sense, and that you also give it a moment. You might be able to say, I don't understand that yet. If you understand it later, let them know, or give them a shout out right to them. And no, because we want to know that we gave you that purity in reading. But don't come in trying to debunk what can be such a beautiful experience.
I totally agree with that. I mean, talking about the evidential side of things, there's one other example, which also was a reading with you as well, which was my partner. I was still living in California, but she traveled over from the UK. So the day after she arrived, she had a reading with you. I got that set up well in advance because I wanted to see how that went. And it was interesting because we were going to go on a road trip, and we were going on a road trip which is going to take us down into the desert, into Nevada, or up into Yosemite, then over to San Francisco, a big road trip, right? And when it was like, yeah, that's right. It's like about a week and a half beforehand. I'd been planning to take my car in for a checkup, and I hadn't got around to it. And I'd got my stuff on. I was going down to the gym. I'd got it all, and I was just stepping out the door. And all of a sudden, I just stopped. I've got to take the car in. I've got to take the car in. And I just turned back around. I went round, got changed, took the car in, and they discovered about 3 things that were wrong that would have gone really badly wrong on that road trip. Now, I told, my other half this, but there was no discussion about that. But when she had the reading with you, her mom came through, and she was talking about the car, what's happened with the car. And you were explaining it sufficiently. So I said, oh, well, that would be John. Said he took the car in. He said it was your mom who was telling him to take the car in, and she was sat alongside him as he was driving to the garage. I mean, there's just no way you could have done that. But that stopped me in my tracks. And I don't know what it was that told me suddenly. I was on my way down to the gym. It was only downstairs. I had to get into the lift and go to the gym. But no, all of a sudden I had to go back in. I was compelled to get changed and drive that car down to the garage to discover 3 things. There was about $4,000 worth of stuff needed doing. Fortunately, most of it covered with insurance, so that was okay. But those 3 things could have been disastrous. One related to a tire, one related to air conditioning, and I think the other one was like a pump. One of the pumps was about to go. So, it was a miracle. And now the other thing I wanted to talk about, because obviously there are a lot of skeptical and cynical people out there, and I get that because 5 years ago I was one of them too. So I totally understand that perspective. But one of the things that I know that you do, have done a lot over the years, it's like telemetry type of thing, which is where you're given, whether it's an article of clothing, a possession or something, and from that you get an energy and you can get a story. The police, right? So I mean, I believe there's been a few occasions where, effectively, I know we use the euphemism, you're helping the police with their inquiries, means you're usually under suspicion, but in your case it doesn't mean that at all. They're trying to get through a case, so they turn to you. That's happened before, right?
Oh, absolutely. It's called psychometry. And it is, I teach it, obviously. I think it's a really powerful way to learn, but yes, the police, mostly families. So I'm on a case right now, a missing 19-year-old. And so I usually get a call from loved ones or a boyfriend or family, a mother that's missing a child. I don't advertise it and I don't charge for it. So I want to be very clear about that. And I'm very selective because I have to know I'm connected in. I wouldn't want anybody to run someone in a circle, so I'm very careful what I say. If someone asks me, is my child dead? I just need to know if my child's dead. I can't answer that. I'm unwilling to, number one, because what if I am wrong? But I do help locate the people who usually commit the crime, which is very interesting, not necessarily the body, but I'll locate, I have located the bodies. But it's a really interesting, exciting, yet very heavy feeling, because what happens is I connect in, usually when they're already gone. Usually when they're already gone. Every once in a while, I'll get them right before they leave. And I'm like urgent and nobody's, hearing me. But usually when they're already gone and they're telling me, I fell into deep brush, they call it dense brush, and they call it exactly what it's called when the newspaper article comes out that they're found. And they'll tell me where they are, which way they went, and I get argued with. No, the dogs went over there, and they would have been, this person would have been found. There was a woman in Julian. It was actually Megadeth Mustang, I think his last name is. They were having trouble locating his mother-in-law, and they didn't ask me. They went, their medium that was there, she's too close, right? And that's why she went to one of my teachers, and my teacher wrote me and said, will you do this? And I said, I'll do it anonymously. I always do it anonymously because I at the time, because I don't want this to be about me at all. And I said, she's about 1.5 miles to 1.5 miles from the where she was. And she went off of not a cliff, but a brush. And this was in Julian, California. And she had Alzheimer's. And I said, she was shadowed. I feel a cougar was shadowing her. And I see her going off of this cliff-like area where there was rocks, and she hit her head. And I said, they kept coming back and saying, it's impossible. This is ridiculous. Everyone was saying she was picked up by a car, or she was up in the mountains. And I kept hearing her, and she would not disconnect from me, repeating the same thing. Oh, I need my daughter to find me, and this is where I am. And she said, I'm wearing white pants, cut off pants with white tennis shoes. I'm in the brush. I'm in the dense brush. And there's going to be a workman that finds me on a Wednesday, maybe, I think she said 3 months later. And I wrote this back and I said, listen, you can find her now. And I think she's probably 0.5 mile from the camp at what she's showing me now, or maybe 1 mile from the camp. And they said, there's no way. A workman found her where the gate was that I said it was, where exactly. And she was they said she was in dense brush on a Wednesday. 3 months later. So they found her by her little white tennis shoes and her cutoff pants. These things were not spoken of that I know of. I don't look it up. I don't want that information. I want it to be clean. And she was so desperate for her daughter to find her. And I knew that they would, because she told me they will, but she could now. She's going to suffer for 3 months. She didn't want that. I was so connected in that I didn't know how to disconnect. And my teacher told me I have to. She said, you're now repeating the same thing and they're not listening and there's nothing you can do. So I didn't follow it because I had to disconnect completely. I was like, I could feel myself cutting the cord over and over and over. She kept stepping back into my energy, and I was suffering with her. And I thought about my daughter. And so, it was really hard. And ultimately, I didn't know they found her. And my teacher wrote me and she said, I want you to know that everything you gave them was correct. She was 0.5 mile from the camp. She went off of a little cliff area, rock area. There was a fence there. There was a man who saw her that was working on utilities. She went the direction you said she went. They found her because of her white shoes, and they found her on a Wednesday, 3 months later. Wow. And she said, I needed you to know that you were accurate because of what you went through.
Mm.
So is it always that clear? No, but it's usually pretty clear.
Mm.
Another one I worked on was a captain of the army, and she lived in San Diego, and it's mind blowing because her boyfriend called me, and let's just say his name was Jim for safety reasons.
Mm.
And I heard that her ex-husband was named the same name, but I didn't know that. I just heard the name, and I thought it was her ex-husband calling me, and I knew he had killed her.
Mm.
And I started freaking out. I'm like, who are you really? And I got scared because I didn't know who this person was. Ultimately, it ended up being a different person that was talking to me, and I gave him everything I had. I could not locate her body. I knew he drove her through the mountains. I knew that for a fact. I didn't know if he threw her off or what happened to her at that point. And I knew that her dog and her were gone, and I knew that her ex-husband did it. And they arrested him. He had taken her car down to about two blocks from her house and had opened a car door and pulled the keys out, and the purse was still there. And it looked like someone abducted her. And I said, oh no, he did that. He drove her car there. And then he took the train back. If you look at the train, you'll find it. And they arrested him. And I said, he'll tell you where she is to save his life. And he did. So this has been really an experience. And right now I'm working on a 19-year-old. I'm so sorry, John. I'm working with a 19-year-old who is missing. And I just got done with a case where a young man went to Tijuana. And, I knew he was gone, and his mother begged me, please, I can't live with, thinking I need to search for him. And it was really hard. It was a really hard decision, because it's not my place to say those things. And when it's something like Tijuana, nobody's going to give her the honest information. They're not going to do it.
No, I'm familiar with Tijuana and what happens there, and it's not it can be a dangerous place. So yeah. One of the things that I did as well, along with my daughter Stephanie, is that we came to some lessons with you in the group lessons, where we did try a little bit of telemetry and that sort of thing. And that was quite interesting, actually, because I was holding stuff that you'd given me, and I was kind of like, I felt like I was just making it up. But actually, a number of things I got were actually really accurate, and not having any prior knowledge about these different things. It was actually quite interesting how you could, even though you wouldn't believe. I mean, I don't believe I have any of these superpowers at all. I
We all do.
We all do. But again, it's a question of what is your role? What is the reason you're here? Where does your piece in the jigsaw fit into the jigsaw, right? What is your special superpowers that do this? Now, maybe it's my job to connect to people like you and people like Jole, my business partner, and various others who have these gifts and talents, and start to present them to the wider world. Maybe that's it. I don't know. Maybe there's more to it. And I don't mind. I don't mind. It is what it is. I'm just joyous about the fact that I was able to tap in to your gift to deliver me something that I was a healing that I didn't even know I needed. But walking away, I thought, wow, this is.
Yeah, I think that everyone has it, but not, the difference is that I work on it all the time, and I've expanded it, but also not everyone is meant to use it in this lifetime, is what I'm hearing you say, which is very true. Teaching forensics, I call it forensic mediumship.
Right.
Teaching that is really interesting. It's a very weird thing to learn, because you're not actually dealing with the now, you're going backwards. You're starting back at least a week or two, trying to tap into what this person's energy is. But I can't imagine, well, I can imagine having a missing person and no one's helping you. That's what I can't imagine, is no one helping you.
Yeah.
And I can't take on case after case. I don't, because I wouldn't be able to, but I do as many as I can. I usually take only one at a time, because they can get convoluted.
Yeah.
And there's so many. It's the children. I do stay away from that most of the time, because I already know the information and I can't take it in. I just can't. But I think that, you know, all the different facets of spiritual work is so interesting. You know, I'm not a medical medium, but sometimes somebody will sit in front of me and I'll go, oh, your thyroid's really bad. You need to get it checked and your D3 is really low. And they go, oh my God, I just got it all checked. And I just heard all that. You know, how did you know that? And I go, I don't know. I just heard it. You know, it's every once in a while that will pop in, but I would never claim to be a medical medium. I think that's a very specialized area. Mine is grief. You know, and teaching. I love to teach it. I love it. It's probably the most enjoyable thing I do in my work is teaching people how to tap into their intuition and watching them blossom and grow and expand in that. I mean, that to me is just beyond. And the community, that they get to be with their community, because I think in anything that we are, anything we do, it's nice to know there's others. And to be able to tap in with them and get to know them and feel the camaraderie. And there's a nurturing side effect of that in my work. So they're being nurtured, they're going through a loss or something, everyone's stepping up. And I love that. I also want to make sure that if they go out there, they're doing it the right way. And not to say that I know the right way, but I believe spirit does. And I really believe they communicate that through me. So that people don't go out there and manipulate people, or, you know, we got a bad name because of the crystal ball thing, right? And many other things, by the way. You know, that these people that come to me and tell me that they have attachments and curses, and if they pay them $5,000, they'll dance around a candle. Please, people, I beg you, do not do that. If spirit can't help you, nothing can. And no human dancing around the candle is going to make this go away. I don't believe in attachments. I believe we attach things to us. So here's an example. If you go to the grocery store and you're checking out and the checker yells at you and she's really snotty and she's slamming things and she's giving you dirty looks and she's rude as ever, you leave. And what do you do with that energy? You think about it for 3 or 4 months before you go back to that grocery store, and you're thinking, how dare she? And every time you pass that grocery store, you remember her. That's an attachment. That's a true human attachment. We're attached to that energy and it's eating at us. Or somebody treats you bad and walks away and they ghost you. That eats at you, right? That's an attachment to that experience. That is real, and you need to work through that and not give your power away, which is very hard. However, and then you go back the next time and she's loving and kind, and you're thinking, I thought about this for 3 months and I thought she was a horrible human being that didn't like me, and it had nothing to do with me. So, you know, you've attached all that to you. So we're constantly, every night, we should be looking at what energies outside of us have we attached to us, what bad experiences have we carried, so we don't carry them for months and months, even a day, you know. So I'm always like cleaning off, you know, like attachments. Somebody else.
I was going to say that makes just a lot of sense as well, because a lot of the stuff that Jolay does by way of meditations as well is about, you know, cleansing and removing those pictures, if you like, those repeat patterns that just keep happening, and things that are no longer serving you, and how to find them, how to identify them, how to cleanse them, how to move, and then to you know, because nature abhors a vacuum, you bring in the things that you want to take the place of the things that you've got rid of. So that does make a lot of sense.
Patterns are different than attachments. Attachments, and please, I just really need to get this across to people. You don't have to pay someone $5,000 to remove a curse, ancestral curse or attachment. You don't. Save yourself, right? If it doesn't make sense, don't carry it. Is it fun to do those things, or is it interesting? Yes, it's very interesting to go back and look at ancestral things and see how you've carried that over. But patterns are created for healing, not for, you know, people to charge you money to get rid of them. They're for healing. So the more it comes in front of me, the more I'm going to heal it and learn about it. And so it has to come in front of me. So, you know, that's the beauty of patterns. So I always say, you know, spirit brings it before me in order for me to work on it. It's not that I'm meant to make it go away. So lessons learned are lessons learned simply. They are not lessons done.
No, that's right. And that's again something that Jolie also emphasizes as well. These are part of lessons that we have to learn and move through. And but actually, because if you don't actually get through the other side of it, the pattern is only going to repeat itself. That's why it's a pattern, right? Because you set it for yourself before you even came to Earth, that you had to get through this particular challenge. And then if you don't get through that challenge, the challenge presents itself again and again
and again
and again until the little light bulb moments that actually, I don't need this. I can do this. I can approach it in this way. And then you've broken the pattern, right? You've got through your life lesson. You move on to the next thing.
Yeah. And I do notice, though, that life lessons tend to come back only simply, I think, for the spirit world or for our unconscious mind, subconscious mind, to make sure we've learned it. So that's why I say lessons learned are simply lessons learned, not lessons done. And so I noticed that pattern, like, for instance, if I'm dealing with narcissism, it's going to come in front of me till I can release the power of it. And then I'll notice that it comes in front of me and I get that lesson of, oh, I healed this. I don't have to step into it. So it'll keep coming in front of me just for a reminder that I've healed this and I don't need to deal with it. It's not that it goes away. It just doesn't get power over us anymore.
Yes.
Which is so powerful. And, it creates our empowerment. So the lack of power of that creates my empowerment in my journey. So I get to have those reminders.
Yeah.
So much spirit world, I get to have those reminders that, oh, there's another narcissist in front of me, and I've dealt with that my whole life. And I think a lot of people who are empaths and spiritual people deal with that a lot. And it's because we speak to the soul. We don't see whether their brain's integrated into that area of them that is created by narcissism. We don't notice that. We notice usually the soul. We have to learn to notice that. And that's not a rejection of people that have narcissism. They have a purpose too. Maybe their purpose is to teach us.
Yes.
I don't know. I just have to think that they're there for a reason. But and certainly I've been taught by that. It's one of my areas, so I'm the furthest thing. I'm like on the other side of the spectrum. And so I don't understand them. And how can I? It'd be like having a pedophile sitting in front of me understanding their obsession with children. I would never understand that. It would make no sense to me. So I can't resolve it because I don't understand it. So I'm going to want that to be away from me or learn enough that I go, okay, this is not healthy. Whatever it is I need to do, whatever my soul needs to process, understand.
It's amazing. So, Susan, I've kept you for an awful long time today because I know we were talking for an awful time before we even began this. and I think for your sake, I need to allow you to go back and enjoy a little bit of you time for the California afternoon. But I've just got to say thank you on so many counts. Thank you for the fact I wouldn't be sat here right now. I'd probably still be stuck in the finance industry somewhere, still churning away unhappily and busily and all the rest of it. Whereas here, I feel that as a result, I've kind of found my life's purpose. And that was the trigger point that began the journey. You're amazingly gifted. You've got a great talent that I would hate, well, not hate to think, but if I knew the number of people that you'd helped in this kind of way over the decades, it truly is a gift. But, it's a gift that comes at a price because I can imagine it's got to be pretty emotionally tiring as well.
It does come with a price, but it's really interesting how spirit just cleans it up for me. There are times when I come home and I cry, and I bring it with me. Most times what happens is spirit cleans it up for me. And what I mean by that is I don't remember. So the things that are going to damage me, I literally one day will be reading someone and feel this couple hours of just trauma inside. And then the next day, my assistant will say to me, the woman that you read yesterday called, she needed a little bit more clarity on something. And I'll go, and she'll tell me her name. And I go, I don't remember her. And she'll say, oh, well, let me find out what your reading was. And she has to literally tell me,
Yeah.
because I just have this great forgetter. And I think a lot of mediums have this great forgetter. And I say that with love and gratitude,
Yeah.
so that I'm not stepping back into it over and over. There are a few things that I'll never forget. And I just can't. And those things, I don't allow them to haunt me, but I do think of those people often and send as much love as I can through my soul into theirs, even though I have no connection with them anymore. We're connected by a memory. I have to be very careful with that. But yeah, it can be very overwhelming. And so I think when people are insulting, obviously I'm an educated medium, and I don't just mean in mediumship, but I'm educated in therapeutic work and things like that. So it's easier for me to know that I have a boundary. But I try to teach that in my classes, because mediums need to know they have a boundary so that they can be protective of their energy, because this is grief, and this is loss, and this is trauma that we're dealing with day in and day out. And on top of a lack of belief. So many people don't even believe. They come because somebody forced them to or bought it for them or whatever. And so they're coming in already rejecting you. Yeah. And so we're dealing with that. And the beautiful part is people like you that make it all worth it, that go, I learned something. I saw me. I found me. And when I hear that, I just, like, my insides glow, because I know spirit did their job through me. In a very massive way. And I'm so grateful.
Yeah. Well, I'd like to think that our paths will continue to cross for the years ahead, because
I'm sure it will.
I feel we've got a lot of work to do at Elevated Planet to help people, to be of service, to reach people, but also to kind of tap into the celebration of life as well, to get away from a lot of the negativity that's peddled out there in the world, and instead focus on all the really good things that go on in the world. You're an example of one of them, but there's plenty of really good people out there doing really good things. But Susan, what can I say? Thank you.
Thank you so much. It was such an honor to come on, and I know I'll see you again, and I'm hoping when my book comes out, I can come and see you when we discuss it a little bit.
I'm excited for that prospect, because I know the book will be special as well, and I know it's going to be another way that you can reach people and help people. So let's do that. Let's get it booked in as soon as dates are set for book releases, and then we'll get it sorted out.
I'd love it. I'd love it.
Fantastic. Okay, thank you, Susan, and thank you also to our Elevated Planet community for tuning in. And I hope you've enjoyed this, and please do put your like on the video, whatever else it is we're going to do on YouTube. And if you have any questions, please don't hesitate to come through ElevatedPlanet.Life with your questions, whether it's a question for me or whether it's for Susan, because I can soon pass it on to Susan if that's the case. Then we'll make sure that happens. So thank you all, and thank you, Susan.
Thank you, John.